I must admit, I felt indifferent towards Choujin X. Choujin X is a curious series to me. There are elements I quite enjoyed that kept me going despite my grievances with the narrative, but the negatives, on the other hand, those just seemed to pile up every time I felt like I found solid ground in this new world created by the mangaka. I believed I stopped reading the series around chapter 24, concluding Tokio and Azuma's fight in their Choujin state. Not because I didn't think the fight itself or the events setting up the future of these characters weren't interesting, instead it had more to do with the fact I saw potential. I saw glimpses of possibility for this particular story to bloom and wanted to support whatever Suishida was working on next, but every time I got excited by certain moments, scenes that will transpire in the manga, so much of what surrounded those scenes, those moments, those hints of possibility was just not as interesting to me, enough to capture my excitement and attention. Everything outside Tokio and Azuma's relation and their individual characters was difficult for me to care about. By the time I realized one whole year had passed since then, since I put the story down and moved on from it, the overall structure of the plot outside the protagonist's arc felt aimless. But then I kept hearing more about how the manga was picking up again and kept improving its quality, that what I actually read in a couple of chapters beyond that point was only the prologue, and the series was beginning to finally show a sense of direction, an end goal in sight. So I decided to binge read all remaining chapters currently available during the moment of recording, 25 all the way to 40.2. Did it change my mind? Did it make me look at the series any differently? Did it put all that build-up into perspective? I would say yes and no. I still believe Tokio Kurohara to be the strongest character in terms of personality and emotional complexity throughout the narrative. I would say even more than Kaneki, I relate and see myself fully in Tokio. His struggle to continuously find a purpose in life, understand what his ambitions and goals are, what skills does he have, what one thing does he want to devote himself to all the way through, fully committed to his aspirations. I don't think I've ever quite encountered the fictional character whose constant self-doubt at war with his inherent untapped potential has hit so close to home. Him making mistakes despite carrying well a task at hand, his friend Azuma lashing out at him for not thinking for himself, for being fine with everyone else underestimating his worth. A simple conversation with his father about the future in chapter 35, the most real and honest moment shared in the entire narrative so far, one I wish we saw more of in the story, alongside Tokio letting off steam in the park to his fellow Choujin. Never have I felt so connected, so understanding. A character I could see getting unnoticed by many readers or getting others frustrated for his inability to take action in a more direct approach, but at the same time, those are the exact feelings I've often felt in real life, towards myself. So seeing him evolve, seeing him grow, that journey just feels so much more personal, so much more cathartic, and I'm sure it was for the author Ishida-sensei as well. That's why confrontations like the one between Tokio and Chandra from chapter 30 are the most interesting to read, because the creativity and demonstration of the protagonist's strategic prowess are at full display, despite not taking center stage in the conflict and being as simple as running away and hiding from the opponent as a means of buying time for his superior. It also serves as a bit of foreshadowing regarding his future development, a natural knack for devising plans in unconventional ways. As mentioned, the two friends' relationship is definitely the standout, serving as the emotional center that breathes life into the series. The remaining cast, with some exceptions, are clearly not as compelling, so far being just there to either move the plot along, add conflict, or just support the main players. Ellie and Kagumura are the two with most potential to stand out, considering the breadcrumbs we've been handed so far, relating to their past. Kagumura in particular, I could see taking a similar path as someone as Sasuke from Naruto, or Uri from Tokyo Ghoul Re, a character set on revenge with the inherent ability to grow as time goes on. Most of the antagonists oftentimes are one-dimensional enough to play a specific role or set up a fight for a current moment in time, adding not much more considerable value than that. Chimera Batista, the masked man with a hidden past, is by far the most imposing figure so far. due to his unpredictable nature and disturbing abilities. Abilities that inform us everything we need to know about his very own nature as an individual. He becomes an even more interesting character when you partially find out the source of his motivation and how it ties respectfully to Sandek. The mother and prophet of Choujin, founder of the Yamato prefecture, is also an interesting addition to the overall plot, all the way to her unique design. On a surface level, you will be forgiven to think she was nothing other than the same type of stereotypical main antagonist, misunderstood by the world's current society and betrayed by its system. But as usual, in typical Suishida fashion, details easily dismissed are placed to not only expand the manga's world building and add progress to the main narrative, but ground the character herself, acting as a reminder this otherworldly looking creature is still a broken person, forgotten by the generations she so desperately fought to protect from a tyrannical ruler and an unstoppable evil, seemingly serving as a consequence for her inhuman methods and detached line of thinking. Notice how she had to become an addict herself, constantly in need to be drugged in order to fight off her condition. Otherwise, the physical pain she's in on a daily basis will be too overwhelming to handle. How her visions and glimpses of the future after so many decades makes her lose grasp of her own humanity, both physical form and compassionate spirit, tossing aside all regard of either human and Choujin lives she stated many times wanting to protect, in order to find a savior capable of inheriting her burden and power. The prophecy is a highlight for sure. Usually I'm a sucker for this kind of ominous visions of the future thrown into the narrative. It raises expectations like nothing else. I do like how at the start of the prologue, we think the endgame consists of Azuma turning to darkness and fighting off Tokyo as the main adversary, only to find out that maybe Tokyo could potentially be the one who brings down unparalleled destruction upon Yamato. Maybe even be the unstoppable evil the mother foresaw in those flames. Or maybe that first theory could still be on the table, if the author so chooses to keep us off track. It does introduce the opportunity for a compelling conversation, doesn't it? Most of the designs and abilities expressed in the art are so unique and creative to look at. Even if I didn't care much about certain characters being thrown at the page, there's no denying the different variations of visual style and conveying each Choujin's power allowed for exciting setups and interesting action sequences at display. There's definitely a greater emphasis on action this time around. Choujin X doesn't read much at all like a seinen. In a world where Hajime Sayama's Attack on Titan is indeed a shonen instead of a seinen series, you will be forgiven to think Choujin was an action shonen, more so in line with series such as Chainsaw Man and My Hero Academia. At times, and I mention this as a personal gripe of mine, as I'm sure everyone will have a different opinion on the subject, there's too much action. I wish there was more time to breathe alongside these characters. More time to get to really know them and get intimate, instead of consistently being thrown into a battle sequence almost every single chapter. Give me time to genuinely care about them, feel afraid for them in dangerous scenarios, laugh alongside them at the million other jabs and jokes being thrown around every single panel. Again, I mention this again. There's potential to expand, add more quiet moments, down-to-earth scenes, like the few we've got so far. Add more meat and potatoes to the plot, like we've slowly been receiving more of after the time skip. In 40 plus chapters, I feel like I barely know these characters. I barely care about most of them and the relation and emotions they share amongst each other. I know what their personalities are like. I know their convictions and motivations to a certain extent. But I don't know why they do what they do, why they believe what they believe. I like everything that has released so far after the time skip. It seems a lot of the complaints I had regarding the prologue have been rectified. But a part of me wishes, for example, we saw Tokyo, Ellie, and Azuma mature in real time, seeing them learn more, strengthen their bond more through different dynamics and not merely the results and aftermath we ultimately got. We're told Ellie and Azuma have gotten closer as comrades in the war against Choujin, but we never see them strengthening those bonds. When we meet Tokyo after the time skip, we meet a version of himself that possesses a more serious and laid-back demeanor, more cautious and experienced outlook of life. We almost meet an entirely different person, if not for his visual appearance and unadulterated personality traits. It feels like we're missing context. I love the reveal, I love the reunion, that change, but the journey getting there felt rushed. It was like watching an anime adaptation that cut out an entire arc worth of untapped development. Okay, picture it this way. Imagine if during the time skip we followed Ellie and Azuma's perspective instead of Tokyo's. That entire time skip with these two main players, only to get to that moment where Ellie reunites with his old friend unannounced and with all the unknown baggage we later find out about on top of his shoulders. After all, that's how the beginning of the time skip plays out anyway. In Ellie's perspective. I was one of the few who actually wanted to see him train and grow and interact with his new companions he so sadly mentioned to Ellie. I would have liked to see how much their deaths affected him personally in order for such a sudden transformation to not feel so sudden. The emotion, that's what to me was missing. That connection he made with strangers, Ellie similar to the audience, never heard about before. I'm literally being told as a reader how to feel about that information, instead of being shown, instead of experiencing those emotions for myself, like the author has done so incredibly well in the past. The ability to put me in his character's shoes, connect with them on a personal manner, despite being fictional. That's what I miss the most in his recent work. That human connection. I must admit, I felt indifferent towards Choujin X, but currently, I don't anymore. I'm actually enjoying what I'm reading, looking forward to what comes next. Even prior to time skip, the moment the main trio gets captured by Batista and sent to the tower where Mother lies, alongside the truth of a tragic future to come, got me invested again. Maybe more so than I ever had before. It was difficult for me to come back every chapter, even when I was trying to catch up, because of a lack of an end goal in sight for the plot, a direction to head towards, to keep me invested and look forward to the future of the series. Most of the narrative just seemed to lack a sense of direction and overall structure. But from that point onwards, I finally had a concrete idea as to where we were headed and the balance of tone we were getting, when before it was a bit rocky and inconsistent. The time skip only reinforced all of that. Now the conflict has layers, and the possibilities are there for the taking. I want to see where we're headed, where Suishida wants to take us. You can tell he's having a lot of fun. There is so much potential for this series to grow. Even still, Choujin X could still turn out to be a genuinely interesting series, continuously changing and evolving for the better, just like it happened with Tokyo. Yes, I'm still going to be there to watch it all unfold until its final chapter is unveiled to the world. Thank you all for watching. As always, I hope you're safe and well, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao. Mata ne.